My problem wasn't the cancer, it was the aloneness. And if I long for anything in my life, it's connection. I'm trained as a psychologist, and I've done 2 master's degrees and a doctorate. And in all of my training, telling your own story is like a big no-no. The whole purpose of this is hopefully to help other people feel less alone in these complicated moments in our lives, where we all let go of all of that fear and bullshit and just exist together as our most authentic, flawed, gorgeous, fucked up selves. When we can be ourselves, we have the best and most perfect chance at connection. I'm Sarah Schmidt, and this is Holy Schmidt, Season 1. Hi, welcome back to Holy Schmidt. I'm Sarah Schmidt. Today, we're going to share with you a hard conversation that I had with my mom. If you've been watching previous episodes, you've seen now that we pre-recorded me telling some stories about some significant moments in my life. So a couple weeks ago, I shared one of those videos with my mom, and I asked her to watch it before we sat down to talk. And in that conversation, we talked about what it means and what it feels like to be hurt, to be disappointed, and be on both ends of that, the giving and the receiving. It was a really hard conversation. And my hope in sharing this with you is that you see the many ways in which tough conversations could unfold in ways that could really support your growth and your healing. Hi, Mom. Mom, tell me how you feel to be recording with me today.
Very nervous.
What are you nervous about?
Well, I don't know what the questions are going to be exactly. It sounds like some really good therapy sessions in the sense that you're able to articulate a lot of your life and the things that went on inside of you and outside of you and try to make sense of all of it. And so that's I think that's good for you. It's probably good for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's going to be really interesting, I think, to see and who this resonates with, who hears some of these stories and what impact it has on them. And I think this whole season, that's going to be a bit of our journey, is a lot of learning and listening to how people respond to this and maybe what they want, more of or less of, who knows? So you watched the episode. What do you think about it? How did it make you feel?
Well, most of it, my whole thing is, did you get the details right? It's like there's a few things in there that were my memories are different, my names are different. Some of the timeline is just a little bit different, but for the most part, it's very interesting to hear you tell pieces of my story. And I can tell that you were really listening to those stories when I was telling them. So, your reflection back is what you heard me say. And I really value that. That's a really good piece.
I love that you said that because I remember you telling stories and really hanging on your every word. They were just so fascinating to me as a little person and as a big person too, because even recently, like last summer, you were talking about something. Maybe it was about, I don't know if it was about leaving the convent and you said something to me about how you had to take the train to Milwaukee to buy clothes, and that no one could know. And I don't think I had ever heard that piece before.
Yeah.
And that just hit me so differently.
Well, and of that $100 that they gave me, which was my dowry that my parents had given, I still had $37 left when we finished shopping for clothes for me. That's what I came home with.
$37.
$37. And then, that was the summer Susie and I picked strawberries for 2 weeks, and we each earned $200 to get us through the summer till she went back to school and I went back to teaching.
Oh my God. I love those stories. Like, I love the story you would tell us about the summer that you were supposed to pick beans, but you weren't good at picking beans.
Yeah, that was 8th grade. I stayed home. I convinced my mother to let me stay home and take care of the kids, the little kids. And she went to pick beans for Ralph Burtler. And she paid me $3.50 a day because that's about what I would earn picking beans, for this guy. And she came home with, 4 or 5 times that amount because she was a very fast picker. And that was a way better deal for me to be able to stay home with those little ones than to have to go pick beans in that field.
It sounds like a good deal for her too.
It was. She got out of the house. She got to go do something that she was really good at, and she was out in the fresh air, and she was probably the only adult with all the kids of the the busload of kids that they always brought in every day. We just walked up to the field, but there were busloads of kids that came to pick those beans, and we would sit on our pails and dream about inventing a bean picking machine.
And
somebody did.
I'm getting all teary-eyed listening to you talk today. And I just want to say that to you and just tell you I think you know this, but I am so in love with you.
I love you too.
I know. I think, when I think about the day that, any of the kids were put in my arms, it was like the day the sun rose and set, in that moment on them. But I also have given so much thought to their own experience of being put in my arms, right? And how different that was for each one of them. I just have this deep connection to you being the first voice, the first arms, the first body I probably regulated with, snuggled with. I mean, and I just, I don't know, I feel I can feel that today. And we're, 180 miles apart and talking to each other on a computer. You're my person. And I often think about how different our relationship is today, even than it was 7 years ago. And I say 7 years ago because I feel like Dad dying, he took up so much oxygen in the room.
He sure did.
And that was okay. But without him there, it has allowed me to be more in relationship with you. And I'm so grateful for that. And I really feel had that not happened when it did, that I don't feel like I'd be sitting here talking to you today like this.
I feel very grateful about that too, because I think I get to be a different person. I have to be totally me now. I'm not a reflection of our relationship that I had with your father. I'm Mom, and I'm fully Barbara now. I've had to learn a lot of more independence, and I certainly had a pretty good handle on that. But I think you've heard me say any number of times since Dad died, I don't have to ask permission anymore.
Yeah.
And I didn't really have to ask permission, but I needed to run things by him all the time, just to keep him in the loop, if I could get him in the loop. And if this is just so different that it's just my voice now. And I get to call my own shots, And sometimes that's a really lonely place to be because I do miss him on a daily basis. I miss not having him around. I miss not being able to bounce things off of him. But at the same time, I don't miss not having to bounce things off of him. So it's a both and or all kinds of things. But for the most part, it's really okay. And I would never say great, but it's definitely okay.
This morning I was in the gym and this guy came in. I hadn't seen him for a week, and he works out a couple days a week. I see him, kind of at the same time I'm there. Last week, Thursday, he had to rush out. His mom called him, and she had called 3 times, and he was like, oh, God, I better answer. And the paramedics were at their house, and he was getting CPR, and he rushed out the door. And I saw him again today, and I didn't, he's not somebody I, text with or talk to. And I said, his name is Andy. I said, Andy, how's your mom? How's your dad? And he goes, he died.
Whoa.
He had a massive heart attack. And he didn't say much about that. He said, when I'm the oldest and my mom doesn't have a debit card. She doesn't go to the bank. She hasn't paid a bill. She when she goes to the grocery store, she writes a check for cash. I thought, what grocery store can you do that at still? But, anyway, that's beside the point. And he's really worried about her. And as I left the gym today, I gave him a hug and I said, hey, I just want to say 2 things. One, I said, give yourself some grace. He was kind of trying to be tough and you could just see it, And then I said, and number 2, don't underestimate your mom. And I thought a lot about you when I said that. Because when I think about all the things that you've done in the last 7 years, it doesn't actually surprise me at all, because I think about all the things you did in the first 28 years of your life before you met Dad. But I'm just super proud of who you are and all the things that you've done and the way you've embraced your life.
It's good. It really is. Yeah, those 28 years, especially those last 3, and you're mentioning that those, I used to tell Dad all the time, those were some of the best hard years of my life that I just loved thinking about. And whenever we talked about him not being in the picture anymore, if that ever happened, I always told him I'd be okay, because I had that to fall back on. I knew that I had to survive in those 3 years between age 25 and 28. I had nobody else I could count on for finances in particular. I just really had to do it. And I think about some of the decisions that I had to make as this shy kid. And really, at age 25, I was, oh my God, I was still so shy, no confidence. But you just keep putting one foot in front of the other because, and I don't know if you want to add this to the piece or not, but when I was in the process of leaving the convent and I met with the representative of the bishop to get released from my vows, he said to me, you realize that you can never apply again to come back here. And wow, nobody had said that to me previous to that. And it scared me silly. But it also made me realize that I had to make it. I had to do what I had to do. And I think that was, again, one of those best hard things that somebody could have said to me. And so I did it, and it was putting one foot in front of the other, literally, and just keep on moving. And I think about all the happenstances that then came to be and why I was where I was and, who I met along the trail and how things all connected. And then I look at me today and it's like, wow, there's a huge culmination of an awful lot of good people in my life and a lot of goodness in my life and a lot of really, I don't want to call them decisions, but it was just things that were in front of me and I knew I had to go in that direction. And and it worked out for the good.
It reminds me of that thing they told you when you entered. I remember you telling me you were sitting in the study hall, put your hand to the plow.
Yep.
And like, you can't look back. We're your family now. And like, no
That was
longer, and
another
all that
scary-
stuff, right?
Oh my God, that was scary.
Well, you had a lot.
Yeah, you've left father and mother and brothers and sisters, and it's like, no. I mean, I couldn't even be attached to my sister who was there in the convent. She kind of hid from me. It's like, wow. I really had to do that on my own, and that was very, very scary. And yeah, it was hard, but I didn't know I had any other choice at that point.
Right.
We just did what we were told to do.
You had like you were there, 12 years or 13 years? 11, sorry. So you had 11 years of practice doing what you needed to do to leave.
Well, that was hard. I mean, that was really hard. Yeah, I can still picture myself kneeling at that altar when I took my vows for the 3-year period. And it's like, oh God, I shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't be doing this. But I didn't have the courage to say that to anybody out loud. And then I had to start talking to somebody. And thank God for Sister Benigna, whose name means kindness.
Oh.
She was my savior that last year.
So she is the person you talk to?
She was the one she would keep saying to me, it's going to be all right, kiddo.
Oh.
It's really going to be all right. Yes. Yep, she was the one.
That's really sweet. In my memory, you spent a long time convincing them you needed to leave.
Yeah, the better part, a year and a half. I was dealing with the same woman that I had for my grade school teacher, because she was now in charge of everybody. And that was a very, very challenging time.
How so?
Well, I was always afraid of her. She was, a bit of a little dictator, kind of, she knew her power and she used it well. I mean, she was a good human being, but it was the 50s, 60s. And at the time that I wanted to go to the convent out of 8th grade, she didn't think I should go. She didn't think I'd stay. And now 11 years later, I want to leave, and there she is. I'm the one that she has to deal. I mean, she's the one I have to deal with over and over. And she didn't think I should go. And she tried to convince me that staying was the better option, that was the better life. And I can hear very, very clearly me saying to her, no, I can be a good Christian. I can be a good woman and not be in the convent. And she couldn't say anything back to me on that one. And I think that was the thing. That was it. That was the one piece that I could say out loud very, very clearly. And then she finally agreed, yes. But then again, she wanted me to wait another year, and then I would have been just totally free to go because the 3 years would have been up. And I said, no, I got to go start my life. I can't wait another year.
Do you remember the day you left?
June 9th.
Really? What year? June 9th, 1960?
1967.
67. What do you remember about the day?
Well, school was out. The biggest thing I remember about the day was taking my habit off and putting on that blue dress, one of those 3 dresses that I had that I was going home with. I'm pretty sure I wore my high heels home to the farm also, because what else? I don't know if I had any other shoes. We didn't get a lot of stuff for me in Milwaukee, but I had that dress on and I'm ready. I'm sitting on the couch waiting for my parents to come and pick me up. I was in Green Bay, and I was taking my habit apart because we sewed it together. When it got cleaned, when it got washed, it was taken and it was straight pieces of fabric, and we pleated it back together and sewed it back together when we did that piece. So it's kind of crazy.
Sounds like you wouldn't wash it very often.
Well, no, but we wore enough underneath it that we wore T-shirts and slips and the whole bit, But at any rate, I'm sitting on that couch waiting, and that was really the first time that all the other sisters in our house, and there were about at least a dozen of us living together, that was the first time they knew I was going home. There was only one of the sisters who recognized what was going on, and we had a very short conversation, but I couldn't even tell them. And they were some really, really dear people in my life who had been just great, but I had that secret that I had to keep at that point. And so, yeah, and then my parents came and we left, and, from there it's kind of a blur, because it's like, my goodness, literally, I went to a farm.
Yeah.
I don't remember clothes that I had for the summer. Where did I get clothes to go pick those strawberries? I couldn't wear those dresses. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Did Grandma and Grandpa come together to pick you up?
Yes.
Well, yeah, they would have had to, because Grandma didn't drive.
Right. No, and they were really very, very happy to have me home. Mm-hmm. Susie, my sister, had finished high school within a day of that, and she had decided too that she wasn't going to go back in the fall. So they were getting 2 daughters back at the same time.
Wow. What else do you want to talk about related to growing up and that, and that decision to go to the convent? Because I just feel like that decision of like going at that time in your life was so pivotal. But maybe as you listen to the episode, what did I miss? What should I have included? What was important about that time?
I don't know that you missed anything really, because I was a very, very shy kid. I didn't feel like I had any of the giftedness of my older sister. She's only 13 months older than me. But, I mean, she was the cheerleader. She had the curly hair. She had the blue eyes. She had the good grades. She was the, cheerleader.
And she had great penmanship too, didn't she?
Oh, yeah, that part I don't remember. But
I remember you telling me that.
We were taught good penmanship as kids. But, she had piano lessons. I didn't get to take piano lessons because my parents couldn't afford another one. So she was already doing that too. And she seemed like the popular kid, and I was just a shadow. And, when I tried to be a cheerleader, I only got votes from my brothers. I didn't get any votes from anybody else. But I wouldn't have been a good cheerleader.
No,
that would have been
you
too
actually
hard
wouldn't have been. That was a gift.
Wouldn't have been any good at all. But
take it from a bad cheerleader. Yeah, really, that was a gift.
Oh my God, I wasn't even good at running. How would I have been a cheerleader? It just was. It felt like an easier thing for me to do, literally, to go to the convent than to go to public high school, where there would have been maybe, I have no clue, at most 500 kids in that building. From a class of 12, maybe we were 14. And that was a thing to do in those days. I mean, there were an awful lot of us going into the convent. Numbers were high on entrance, not so much those that stayed, but a lot of us went in. Mm-hmm. And I just felt that was a much easier decision to make. But it was really hard for me to leave my siblings.
Yeah.
I think I missed them way more than Diane did, because I spent a lot more time with them than she did. She was out in the garden and stuff like that, and I spent time with babies, and those were good days for me.
Yeah, I love your stories about whenever a new baby came home. My favorite one is about the twins. I still can't believe that Grandma and Grandpa named them Tom and Jerry, but, okay, we'll sidestep that. But I remember you telling us about how Grandpa had a whiskey barrel and he cut it in half and he put the whiskey barrels on the top bunk.
Yes.
and put the babies
was
up there so
4.
you guys couldn't bother them?
Yeah, I was 4 when they were born, and that's probably one of my clearest memories of those babies coming home. And it was like, wow, 2 babies, So, yeah, I don't remember taking care of them because I was a bit small for that at that time. The first one that I really, really remember taking care of is Susie, because she was my first sister after 5 brothers. And so that was pretty super special.
So how old were you when she was born?
I was 7.
Oh, that's, yeah.
Yeah, we got a doll buggy for Christmas. It was gray. It was totally collapsible. It looked like an official baby buggy, but for dolls. And Susie was very small. She was a tiny baby, and she was born in April. So, she's little for the summertime, too. And I remember a time that Diane and I were going to walk to the little corner grocery store, and my mom let us take Susie along in the buggy, in that doll buggy. And we're crossing the boulevard, and the buggy collapsed. And we thought we killed our sister. So I grabbed the baby, Diane grabbed the buggy, and we went running back home. We never did get to the store. We hadn't hurt Susie at all.
Yeah.
But wow, that was scary. But here we are, 7 and 8 years old, walking to the grocery store with a brand new baby in a doll buggy.
Yeah, and that probably, nobody would have thought twice about it.
No. Oh, my goodness, no.
No.
I mean, I walked to kindergarten when I was 4,
Yeah. Of course you did. How far was the walk?
about a mile.
Yeah. Let's switch gears a little bit. And
Okay.
I'm wondering, how did it feel for you to hear me talk about my experience of being sick and feeling disappointed in you?
I don't think that that's a huge issue in my life because at the time I had no clue how to help.
Yeah.
I think so often about how in the world did we let you go back to Northwestern to have your radiation treatments?
Yeah.
It feels, my memory is that you kind of insisted on it, that you wanted to be back at school. And, it's like, okay, she doesn't want to miss a semester. She's got a friend there that can help her. I think I knew that you were going to count on Jen to help you during that time.
Actually, Jen
But
was
it
in
was
Europe that whole semester, so I wonder who that friend would have been. But anyway,
Somebody, I just have this vague recollection of somebody helping you get back and forth to those treatments. And it was like, there were a lot of times when I did not realize that I could say something. I just, and that, I mean, not even just that instance, it was so many that just feels like there were any number of occasions when I didn't know I had permission or even responsibility to try to think differently or say something out loud or, and I'm guessing those thoughts were in my head that I would have wanted to say, no, stay home. This will be better, but I didn't have a clue on that.
yeah, it makes me feel better knowing that you thought it, even though you didn't say it. And it makes a lot of sense to me because I think about the story you told me about going to the convent and really believing that Grandma and later Grandma saying to you, I didn't know I could say no. I didn't know that I could encourage you not to do this.
Or wait till after high school was one of her things. If you know, if God really wanted you, your vocation would have still been there after high school. Something like that. She said later on, but she didn't know either, and she did a great job of doing her best and trying. And I remember having that same conversation with her when she was so worried about some of my brothers who hadn't turned out the way she ever imagined. I mean, oh my God, their stories.
Yeah.
And she said she wanted to know if she had been a good mother. And I knew instinctively to say to her that she had absolutely done the best that she could. And I mean, there was no doubt in my mind. I think about a woman who had an 8th grade education, and her mom was a loving, wonderful human being who, I mean, I loved her dearly. And, for the little time that I knew her, her dad was a bit of a tyrant and he was an alcoholic. So that was not so great. But she didn't grow up with a lot of role modeling as to how to be the best parent she could. But she did. She really, really did the best job that she could. And she was such a good listener. And that was the best part. And I think she also learned, because she watched her sister pretty much mess up the life of her sister's kid. Her daughter ended up just a mess. And I remember my mother saying she would never, ever do that to any of us. And that was, she was very observant about an awful lot of stuff in life. And she did some really good things teaching us. And if we caught it, we were good. So I feel like I caught a bunch of who she was as a person, as a mom, as a wife, as an adult woman. I think I really was able to observe her being just a really, really good human being. There was just a goodness and a gentleness about her. And I guess I hope that I got enough of that I was able to pass it on to my kids. Certainly wasn't perfect, but
Well,
I think I did my best.
I know you gave it your best. Yeah, I know you did. There's a little piece of an episode that I record where I talk about this psychologist who, coined the term the good enough mother. And I talk about how I really feel like if we drive ourselves toward perfection, we make ourselves crazy, right? I mean, the whole purpose in parenting is to be good enough, right? And to allow our kids a certain level of discomfort and allow them room to grow and not get too in the way. I mean, if you try to solve all their problems, they never learn how to solve problems, right?
Right.
And I feel like there's just there's a balance in there, though, that is sometimes hard to achieve, I think.
Well, there was one piece that I heard you, and I don't remember where I saw your first piece and then this short piece earlier today, and you were talking about how you felt like I was trying to do everything perfectly, and I, trying to do it myself and doing it on my own without any help. And it was like, I think about the first time that Dad said, you should get some help, because he wasn't going to do that. He wasn't going to do the phone. He wasn't going to wash the windows. He wasn't going to, do any of that stuff. But I should get somebody. And it's like, oh my God, how guilty I felt that I needed somebody to come in and clean the bathrooms and scrub the floors and stuff like that, that I just couldn't keep up anymore. I mean, I really did need some help. And that's still a little bit of a piece for me, that I am not self-sufficient enough and capable enough to do all of this stuff on my own. And then I think about how tired I got and how still do, kind of, and how grateful I am that I have that chance to have somebody help me.
Right.
But it's not the easiest thing for me to do. Even to have you kids help me with stuff sometimes is really hard to ask. I guess
you're amazing at saying yes when we offer. But yeah, it is hard for you to ask.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I think my experience of being asked is this deep, I love feeling needed, right? And so being asked to help is the ultimate way someone can say, I really need you.
Right.
And it's such a gift. And, I don't necessarily it's not easy for me to ask. It's something I'm getting better at, but even just admitting I have needs, that word, I don't even like the word. Need, it could become needy, right? There's be careful. It's interesting to even think about how those words resonate for me.
Right.
So Mom, what do you remember about me being sick?
Wow. I remember Christmas being a mess. I do remember you coming home. I don't remember the laundry room piece that you were talking about. It felt more like we got the call and you were, but I don't know how you could have been sitting at a table because the phone was on a cord. But I mean, I remember hearing that it was cancer, not a clue what that really, really, really meant. And when you mentioned the idea that it was stage whatever and it was good news, I remember being so relieved about that. And your memory from what I heard you saying earlier was you were still so, so, so scared.
Yeah.
And I know that we had Dave Lenz involved right from the get-go. And then we did all this stuff with doctors right in the territory. I mean, they were all right there in the valley with us. And a lot of that has gotten, it's like, okay, maybe there's a memory, maybe it's not quite a memory. It's just a reaction that's turned into a memory. I remember you laying on the couch or in a chair or something after that surgery for your spleen. And oh my God, that was just so hard. And then you wanting to go back to school. And I don't know if you ever really said you wanted to go back to school or if between all of us, we decided that was a good place for you to be. We knew that was a great medical facility for you to be going to. And I think that was my way of resolving letting you go, was that you were going to excellent doctors to a really great facility that was going to take good care of you. But I also remember at least a few conversations with you while you were going through that treatment. And wow, another one that just popped into my head was that Kevin and Nancy and your dad and I were on a cruise.
Yeah.
We had gone on our very first ever cruise in the Caribbean, and we didn't have cell phones. So I was talking to you on the end of a dock on
St.
probably
John.
a payphone or something, and you're telling me about your hair falling out. And I couldn't breathe. It just scared me that we were that far away. And I don't, I'm guessing you probably had said, go, I'll be fine. And I mean, you're the kid, I'm the mom, and I believed you. There are times when I think I should have been there, but that's hindsight. That really is looking back and thinking, oh my God, with what I know today, I would make different decisions. But it's another situation where I think we all kind of made the decisions based on what we kind of knew and what we felt, and not being able to say some stuff out loud.
Yeah. I feel like there was a lot of stuff that we didn't say out loud.
I didn't know the questions to ask. I mean, I had no real knowledge in that field at all.
Yeah.
I just trusted that the people that were leading us were giving us good information and helping us. But yeah, I don't know.
I remember that conversation with you when you were on that cruise. And I had to telegram the ship.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then you called me back. And my memory of it is like you were like, what is the matter? And then I remember there being some conversation about how expensive it was to make a phone call from a ship.
Wow.
And I didn't know that in my memory, I wasn't sure if I actually told you my hair was falling out or if I just shut down at that point.
No,
Because
you
that
did.
day, I mean, that day was really, I can actually remember that day really, really well because I didn't know my hair was going to come out all at once. Like, I
It
mean,
was all in the back of your head.
I
Yeah.
was actually throwing up. And while I was throwing up, I was trying to pull my hair away from my face. And I went like this over the
Oh,
toilet to make a ponytail. And a whole handful of hair came out while I was vomiting.
yeah.
And it was so scary. And then and when your hair falls out from radiation, it's not like if you pull and you feel a hair coming out. It was like the sense
It
of it
just let loose,
just
doesn't
let
it?
loose.
Yeah.
And it was just in my hand. And then I started just taking all of it out because I didn't want it to come out in like little pieces all over the place. So while I was in the bathroom, I just took all my hair out of the back of my head. And I had this pile of hair, and then I didn't know what to do with it because I was in a dorm. It was it was a hallway bathroom. It wasn't even like a private bathroom.
Right, right.
And I remember you guys brought me earrings back from that trip.
Yeah, with those little emeralds.
Yeah, I wore them for a long time, and then I got really angry at them.
I think that's justified.
Getting ready for this getting ready for this call today, I was really, really nervous. And I was trying to get clear with myself on what I was actually nervous about. And I think the biggest thing that I was worried about was I was afraid I was going to hurt your feelings. That if I were to tell you, like, I'm really disappointed, or I really wish, or like, that was so hard, that I would make you feel bad. And it's so hard for me, even at 52, and I'm looking at this incredibly resilient human who can do such hard things in front of me. The idea that I would hurt you is like I would do anything, I think, to not have that happen. And yet, not saying those words, I feel like would just keep us from being as close as we're meant to be.
Yeah.
I mean, when you love somebody, you're going to hurt them. You're never going to do it perfectly, and when you're a parent, and I know this now really well because I have a couple kids that will share with me regularly all the things I've done wrong. And yeah, I mean, we're human beings.
I am really, really grateful that we can have conversations like this. They're not easy, not any more than some of the conversations that I've had to have with your father over the years.
Yeah.
They're extremely difficult, very stress related, just big, big stuff. But it helps us grow as adults. And I love the fact that we can have this adult relationship. And I've heard way too many women my age who say they wish they could talk to their kids the way we can, and also that they wish that they could have talked to their mothers. And I feel like I'm able to have both. I had some really good conversations with my mom, and I really, as hard as some of these conversations are, they're good. This is what we should be doing. If we're going to be adult women today, we've got permission to do this. And yeah, God, we don't even need permission. We just really should be doing this. And it isn't even a should. We can do this.
Well, I feel like it's a way to honor each other too. Like, I'm trusting that you can handle my big feelings, and that you'll be okay, and that you're capable of handling yours. And we're kind of breaking a bit of a little cycle here where as a little person, I felt really like I had to take care of you, And I'm saying, my mom actually is really quite capable of taking care of herself. And I want to support her and love her. But, I watched you learn how to walk again at 80 years old.
Yeah.
And I didn't walk for you,
No, you
I
were a little
watched
bit
you learn how to
challenging for
take
me.
a shower again. I mean, you went from
pushed
laying,
me a little bit hard.
I pushed you very hard, but I've seen you do like really hard things. And I think it gives me a lot of courage because because I know you can do hard stuff, Mom. And because you can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
I also don't want to live, like if we're going to have another 20 years together, that'd be awesome.
Wow.
I don't want to live with regrets.
Yeah, I don't want to get to the place where I'm no longer around for you to talk to me directly. And you've got stuff you still need to tell me.
Yeah.
I want us to say it now. I do have that regret with your dad because I feel there are things that I wish I could have said to him more clearly. And now I talk to the air. I talk to, hopefully he's hearing me somewhere out there.
Yeah.
But I really, truly wish that we had, just a few different conversations about some stuff. So I promise you, say whatever you need to. And I'm a big girl.
Yes, you are.
I can do this.
I actually feel like I've kind of said it all, Mom.
Yeah.
And it's such a great feeling. I mean, I could always reiterate the point because I'm very good at that.
It's all right. We don't have to keep beating a dead.
I love that. Let's not beat a dead horse, okay?
Right.
Yeah.
But you know what? I was listening to you talk about how you as a little kid felt that you had to take care of me. I did not know that. I mean, I've heard you say it more recently, but when you were a little kid and I was the mom, I did not know that you had that big thing inside of you that was kind of compelling you over and over.
Yeah.
I know that I put you in charge of an awful lot of stuff because I came to depend on you to help me with stuff when I really should have been asking Dad. I did not know I could ask him. So when you were my closest, you were right there next to me, hanging onto my leg most of the time. So that became a pattern between the two of us that I counted on you and you took on this role in a very significant way that a 4 or 5 year old shouldn't have been carrying. But again, what did we know?
Right.
How did we know differently? And that's why it's good that we can say this stuff. And I've told you, I wish I hadn't. I'm sorry I did, but it wasn't on purpose. If it was.
Yeah, I know it wasn't, Mom. And I really want you to hear me when I say, I know you were always doing your best. I know that. And I don't have any, God, I'm really sitting here and there's not a part of me that is angry at you or resents you or I feel so, I feel so okay with the person I am and the life I've lived and the challenges I've had, and I'm doing great. And they've made me who I am. And I guess I also, as a mom and a person who's been, parenting for a while now. I mean, Mom, this morning I yelled so loud at the kids that when I got to the gym, my throat hurt. And I had to send her a text, because that's how we communicate when she's at school, telling her how sorry I was. And then, she responded back to me and was like, I'm really sorry too, Mom. And we had a little talk about it before I came into the office this morning, and we had a hug, but I was doing my best.
Yeah.
And it really came up short this morning. I mean, and what am I going to do about that? It happens.
Well, you're going to hopefully learn and try to do it a little differently the next time. And there's no guarantees on that one.
Nope.
Because I think about all the hollering and yelling and stuff that I did as a kid, as when you kids were little. And, Maggie was the one that was home after you were already in school, and she got a bunch of that from me. And I've directly apologized to her for all the screaming that I did, because I didn't know where to direct it, and it ended up at the three of you. So,
yeah.
Not a good scene. And I heard you talk about how lonely you were as a kid. And, we're living out in the country where there wasn't a lot of stuff going on, and you got a bike to town if you wanted to be involved in softball and stuff like that. Andy talks about how lonely he was. I've not had that conversation with Maggie, but I'm guessing it isn't, it's probably her experience too. And, there's a lot of good stuff about the life that you kids had as little people, but none of us were able to make really, really good connections. And I'm just beginning to realize this. We did a lot of running around. We were home, and then we were up north, and then we were home, and then we were up north, and we lived in the country, and it was in the car to get to stuff. You couldn't just walk across the street. I mean, you could go play with the neighbor kids, which was wonderful, but, and it's a life that I had as a kid too. We lived in the country. We had 2 friends across the field. There was nobody else to play with. There were plenty of us, but
you had a lot of siblings. But
how much baseball can you play? And so there's a repeat there of a pattern. And I'm not a person who needs a lot of people around me. I know that for sure. I'm perfectly fine with 1 or 2 friends, and it works well. It works okay for me. But I think that you kids needed a different kind of stimulation probably when you were young. I think there was a lot of loneliness in my life as a kid and in your lives as kids.
Yeah. Well, there was also a lot going on in our family that I think just kept us distant from ourselves, and each other, and I think that created some loneliness that it wouldn't have mattered where we lived or how many activities we were in or how close we were to friends, that some of that I think just kept us feeling isolated. When you feel disconnected from yourself, no matter where you live, you could be in the middle of New York City and, you're going to experience disconnection from others. That's probably another podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, or not.
My loneliness in the convent, all those people around me, and we were not allowed to have really, really close friends in those days. That's a podcast. Holy cow.
Wow.
You were supposed to be friends with absolutely everybody and nobody.
Wow. What did that mean? What do you mean by that? Say more about that.
There was this term that they used in those days called particular friendships.
Oh.
And so you weren't supposed to be too close to any particular individual. You were supposed to love everybody equally. And that's a bunch of you-know-what. And there was this need in me to have a friend, and yet I couldn't have a friend. I couldn't have somebody who I would confide very quiet things, the very special things that you just were not allowed to do that. You were always part of a group. You were, if 2 didn't go for a walk.
2 people couldn't go for a walk?
Not so much,
Wow.
because then you'd be questioned.
Wow.
But again, let's go back. We're in the 50s and 60s. So,
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, let's take the context and the timing into play. But like, how many?
but it was sad.
It was sad, and that was during a time of your life where you were really like, you're programmed at that age to be thinking about your social relationships, and you're,
Right.
think about what every teenager does, right? We move from self and connection to parent to other and relationship in the world, and that you're supposed to be figuring that out at that time in your life, and you're told here's all this here's a whole bunch of rules about it that now apply.
Yeah. Yeah,
And-
we were not able to make any kind of social connections.
Wow. And there were
Even
so
though we
many
lived
rules,
on
like,
top of each other.
say it
So, I
again,
mean,
Mom. What?
We lived on top of each other, and yet,
Yeah, in like such close quarters.
yeah, I mean, we didn't even have our own bedrooms. We had a dorm,
Yeah.
So, yeah,
But you weren't supposed to feel connection in
Right.
particular ways.
yeah,
God, what were they so afraid of?
yeah.
I know. We know. It makes me sad.
We could only dance to polkas, not waltzes.
Really?
Honest.
Oh my God. Mom, it's so fucked up. I mean, it really
Yes.
is. Like, I'm just gonna
Really, I mean, if you start going down the rabbit hole, it's just sad,
Yeah.
sad.
like the point I want to make with this is that if you really want to be close to, to your parents, to people this important in your life, number one is you're going to experience some hurt and disappointment. Okay. And let's all like have some thick skin around that. Okay. Accept it. We're not perfect. We're not supposed to be. We're going to make mistakes. When you were raising me, it was the first time you'd ever been parented before, right?
For sure.
I think about this now. This is the first time I've ever been 51, and it's the first time you've ever been 81. So let's give each other some grace right now in this moment. Like, I don't know what I'm doing, really. Yet we have this set of expectations like, supposed to have it all together.
Oh, God.
Still
Not
figuring,
anymore.
Not anymore, right? We're figuring it all out together. So I mean, I don't know. I was going to make a point, and there were two parts to it, but I lost the second part. That's part of
okay.
being 51.
Yeah. Just wait.
Mom, what have you thought about as you've watched me become a mom and observe me parenting? You're so good at you don't butt in. You're so good at being a grandparent and staying in your lane. I've never felt this sense of like you're interfering. I mean, and you've spent a lot of time with us, and we've had a lot of time together, and I've never, ever felt like you were interfering, which is amazing, I think. But I'm curious, as you've watched me become a parent, what do you think? How am I doing?
Well, first of all, I think parenting is a way, way, way bigger job today than it was when I was a parent. I mean, you got technology in your life that, I mean, my God, we had a TV and a radio. That was the extent of technology, and a phone that had a cord. Just the fact that you have to manage that with your kids just blows me away, that there's so much. And then the activities that your kids have gotten involved with, and all kids today seem to be so busy. And then there's mealtime, and there's the responsibilities of a household, and you've got an awful lot on your plate. And you've got different relationships that have to be maintained with the parenting that you do is not just with one other human being. You're doing multiple coordinations and all that kind of stuff going on. So it's like, oh, I don't want your job. I do want to stay in my lane. I do not want to give a whole bunch of advice unless I'm asked. And I get that from my mom because that's what she learned from her sister, that she was never going to interfere in her kids' lives once they became adults. because she watched her sister do that, and it was a disaster. So that's a really good thing. I think I learned from my mom that I'm a grandma. I just love on these kids.
Yeah.
And listen to them and hopefully just spend time. I love the hugs, and they didn't come by that naturally. They do that because they've seen you. They've seen the way you love.
Yeah.
You've been very able to demonstrate love with the kids. Yeah, there's screaming, there's hollering, there's fighting, there's all that kind of stuff. That's part of living. But I think when you get to the core of what you are doing as a parent, you absolutely love your kids and you want the very best for your kids. And that's exactly what I want for you and for those kids. And I just want them to grow up to be the best human beings that they can. That T-shirt. Do you remember that T-shirt?
Oh, like God doesn't make junk or something?
No.
Wait, what? I don't know.
I'm the best me I can be.
Oh, I'm the best me I can be. Yeah.
That has been my motto. I try to keep that kind of in my focus, but I've used it with Andy a ton. And I think about it in terms of your kids. And I do see them, all of these kids, all 12 of them in my life, really doing some beautiful stuff as young humans and moving along this whole life thing. And I just want to be there. I like being an observer without putting a lot of advice into the picture.
Yeah.
And if you ask, I might tell you, but
I love seeing you be a grandmother. And I feel like watching you become a grandmother gave me a glimpse into the kind of love the way you could love if there was no other pressures and responsibilities and all the other stuff that got in the way.
I can just grandma. Just do that.
And that was so important for me in letting go of some of my own feelings of like disappointment and just seeing who you really were at your core, in your essence, like your truest self. And I got to be in relationship with that part of you through my kids. And it's been a little like getting reparented myself.
Yeah. Good.
It's pretty great.
I like the chunks of time I get to hang out with you and your sister and the kids, because I get to see you, all of you, in your pajamas, and that's an important part of the day, with the kids that live here, I see them for a little bit of time and then I go home. But when I go to your house or when we go somewhere together and spend a week together, that's a whole different life experience for me to see how the dynamic is working. Much more concentrated and good. It's a much better picture.
We spend a lot of time in pajamas.
That's good. They're comfortable.
They're comfortable. Oh my goodness. What do you know about parenting now that you wish? Anything else that you wish you would have known when we were kids, when you were parenting us when we were littler?
Well, I think the biggest thing that I know about parenting now that I wish I had known better was that there's two of us that make those children. And there are two of us who should share equal parenting. And I remember Tom Lenz saying to me one time when I asked him if he was babysitting because Karen was going to choir practice, and he said, "You got to be kidding. I'm parenting." And it's like, I let your father be the babysitter much more than I ever let him be the parent, because I felt that I had better ideas, maybe. I had better observations. How he was not really able to pay attention to things at times. He was so much in his own head that he couldn't hear what was going on around him. And that led to screaming on my part to get his attention. But I would have if I could do it all over again, this would be much more of a 50-50 job.
Yeah. I remember you telling me about how were you in a choir or did you go to like a,
I was in the guitar group.
okay, so you were in the guitar group, but you would get us in our pajamas, change the diapers, have everybody's
ready.
teeth brushed,
Everything.
books read,
Well,
like everything.
No, he read the books.
Okay.
He could do that, but beyond, I had to have the books ready. But I mean, I can still picture you were the only kid at that point, and I just had to go across the street over to church, and I had to have you in your pajamas ready to go, and he'd read you a book and tuck you in bed. But beyond that, no, he didn't change diapers in those early days. I bet we could count maybe a dozen diapers that were changed, and you know, the three of you and all those years. So. Yeah.
Well, I mean, in his defense, they were cloth diapers, and that's kind of gross.
Well, no, we got to paper ones after a while. But
just kidding. I'm totally kidding.
I did not know that I could ask him to do that because he'd been busy all day at his job. You know,
right.
that thing outside the house. But I do know that now. So
yeah,
if I could come back again and go around,
I think it would have made our relationships with him more authentic too. Like,
oh, for sure.
It would have been a lot easier to navigate and to like figure out how to be in relationship with him. Cause I feel like I kind of had to do that when I was in my 20s and I was like, okay, now I want to have a relationship with my dad. So how do I do that? And it was kind of like, it was almost like starting over.
Right.
Like, what do we do together? What, you know, like there was just nothing just kind of flowed easily.
Yeah. Yes.
This has been like, I mean, forget about the fact that there's a podcast here. This has been really cool for me.
Okay.
And I'm glad I had a reason to talk to you about this stuff. And it's been, you know, a lot of people talk about healing right now. It's kind of like this, you know, the zeitgeist is all about like, we're going to do our inner child work and we're going to heal from our traumas, and a lot of people talk about it and what you need to do to heal. And I just want you to know that you and I talking today about how we really feel about things and being really honest and open with each other has been remarkably healing for me. And if I thought I could love you, you know, if I thought I could love you more, I would have said, no, I can't love her more, but I love you more.
Okay.
So thank you. You're just, thanks for showing up today.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah. We're really lucky in a lot of ways. Well, there it is. We did it. And I'm so glad that I was able to share that with you. In the days that followed this conversation, I was struck by a couple things. Number one, I was so elated. I walked away from that call with my mom feeling more joy, really authentic joy, freedom, wholeness. It was really powerful and really, 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 really confirmed all the reasons why I wanted to do it. I wanted to try. But it was also exhausting. I was exhausted for a few days. And it just also reinforced for me that emotional work is some of the hardest work that we do in our lives. And I really had to give myself some space and some time to rest and to integrate, and also to just sit and acknowledge, yeah, that was really big. It felt really big. And let it just be big. So as you listen, I want you to think about how you can give yourself some grace. You know, the timing of these things is really, I don't know, it's a nuanced, delicate kind of thing. I knew I was ready to have this conversation with her because I no longer needed a certain kind of response from her. I had done so much of my own work and my own healing around the things that disappointed me, the things that were difficult. I felt pretty good about myself. I felt pretty solid. And I really felt confident that no matter what she said, that those things were not going to go away. They weren't going to disappear. And so it was with very, very simple expectations that I invited her to be on the podcast with me. I just really, truly wanted to share with her, and I hoped to be heard. But beyond that, I was ready for whatever was going to come my way. And I encourage you, as you think about the difficult conversations that you want to have with people, that you do your work, you do your own internal work alongside having the conversations that you want to have. And you do it from a place of knowing that you're good enough, you're enough, and give yourself the affirmation and the support you need. And give yourself a lot of grace before and after. So if any of this resonated with you, we'd love for you to join our community. Subscribe to get first access to next week's episode. And please follow us on Instagram to continue the conversation at Holy Schmidt. WHOLEYSCHMIDT. And thanks.